So here we are, Rover Discovery 2005 LR3 4.4 V8 with the auto box. Purpose of this clip is to help support those enthusiasts out there to do a home mega flush or near as best as you possibly can. I must stress this isn't a sump replacement video, it's purely how to flush the system out. So let's start with the basics, and let's keep it basic, and if you keep it basic, all too often you can't go wrong. So the way the engine's configured and the drivetrain and the cooling system is really quite simple. You have the auto box here, you have a sump, you have a torque converter which is bolted to the back of the engine, and basically when the engine's running it spins a torque converter. The torque converter, amongst other things, sucks the oil from the sump from it, and it uses the automatic transmission oil to convert power from the engine into the drivetrain, which then drives the wheels. It's that simple. The reason why the auto box carries a lot more fluid than a standard normal manual gearbox is, for one good reason, is that a large part of what the ATF fluid does is actually takes the torque from the engine and turns it into the drive through the torque converter. That's why a normal manual gearbox only holds about 2.5 litres, auto box 10 litres, around that for that reason. How is it split? Okay, in the sump, that can generally hold between 3 to 4 litres depending on where the oil's sat. Inside here you have up to 4.5–5 litres, and then the rest of the oil is distributed inside the gearbox and through the cooling system. Percentage wise, if you think that we're holding 10% at 10 litres of oil, this is about roughly 40%, this is roughly 35%, and the other 25% is taken up in here, lines and here. That's a rough ballpoint. Basically what happens when the engine's running and it's under load with it, oil's sucked through into here, it uses the ATF, it distributes oil into the gear mechanism to make sure it's lubricated, and oil is put through here to cool it down. Depending on what vehicle you've got, depends on where the flow of oil is into the cooling system. So for the V8 it runs through here, through there, through the cooling system and back into the gearbox. I believe some of the diesel models it operates the other way around, but it's up for you to do the research and find out which way the oil flows. And I'll talk through that once I do the actual oil change. What are we trying to achieve here? Basically getting as much oil out of the system as we possibly can without damaging the gearbox and replacing it with new oil. That's basically what we're trying to achieve. How are we going to do that? Well, we're going to drain oil from the sump, and we're also going to use the torque converter and the oil pump that's sat behind the back of it to pump oil via the cooling system into a waste reciprocal, and that's exactly what we're doing, and it really is that easy. Next question, going off this diagram, let's relate that to the vehicle. Here's the radiator system here, and then on V8 model, on the left hand side of it, here is the coolant pipe that runs in from the transfer box, and it's basically connected to a cooling system, and all we need to do is remove this Jubilee clip here. I don't know if you can see it. Remove this pipe, and then that is going to be, this pipe here is how we're going to pump the fluid back into the gearbox, and the discharge side of it will come through this steel insert which is fitted into the cooling system. Tools. What tools do we need? Well, as with anything in life, there's always one way to skin a cat, and but I believe that if you're doing home maintenance, try to get the best possible tools you can afford, because basically moving down there is all a little bit downhill. So what I have is a proper ATF pump for pumping ATF fluid, and it's really good. You know, you can measure the quantity of fuel that you put inside it. It's translucent, you can see through it, you can see the ATF being pumped in, so you're taking out the guesswork. I'll explain what this is shortly. This is a vacuum pump, really handy piece of equipment to have in your garage for all sorts of reasons, for oil changes, but I'll use this to actually suck the oil from the sump of the automatic gearbox. I've got a small little transfer pump here, litre, handy for getting into those awkward places. Might use it, might not. And then this is some of the tools that you get inside for the ATF machine. The one that we're going to be using here is this one, and the reason for it is that the external diameter of this is 10 millimeters, which just so happens is the internal diameter of the pipe that we're going to be connecting to pump the oil back into the auto box, which works out really handy. And also that tool fits into there, and I'll show you that once it's assembled. Reason for this pipe is that this is the pipe that we're going to connect to the radiator, the cooling system there, and what we'll do then is we'll use this pipe as a mechanism of transferring the dirty oil into here as well, so we can keep hold of it, and plus you can see the fluid quite easily moving through it, so it makes life a lot easier and it takes the guesswork out of it. Now here we are underneath the vehicle, and this is the other side of it, namely the sump. Now, first thing that you need to do is remove this aluminium heat shield, and it's easy enough. You can do it in situ. 4 bolts, 1, 2, 3, 4. It's a bit dark under there, hopefully you can see. And then all you simply do is drop the pan down, twist it, now it sits, and then once we've done that, we've got access then to the drain plug and the fill plug. Okay, so I've got the aluminium sump heat shield removed. Nice easy job. It's a plastic pan, not difficult, but there's the drain plug underneath. Can get access it through it there, and then the fill plug. See, just there, steel fill plug into the casing, which is easily removed. Now there's 2 ways of doing this, but the goal of the exercise is to empty as much oil as you possibly can out of the sump, and then refill that with good clean oil, and then at least you know when you start the engine and you start to do the sort of homemade mega flush, it's sucking clean oil through the sump. There'll be a lot of people out there, oh, this is a waste of time, waste of money, you should do the sump pan and the filter. Well, you know, my experience is I've had heaps of Land Rovers, and I've replaced the sump filter on mine earlier Land Rovers every 150,000 k's. This one's only got 70,000 k's on it, and I've run them for 500,000 k's and there's not been a problem. So it's up to you. There are various videos out on YouTube to replace this with a steel pan one, which I will do eventually, but it's not an easy job, and it's not been very well designed under here for removing it, but that's another subject in itself.